Captain Li Wu walked through the massive corridors of the warship Tegukum. His boots made loud sounds on the metal floor as he moved toward the bridge. The ship was so big that it took him 20 minutes to walk from his room to the command center. 12 kilometers of pure human engineering stretched out in all directions around him. The walls were thick enough to stop nuclear bombs. The corridors were wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side without touching each other. Everything was built to last forever and fight anything the universe could throw at humanity. This was not just a ship. This was a flying fortress that could destroy planets. Li Wu stopped at a window and looked out at Earth below. The blue planet looked small and peaceful from here, but he knew that down there millions of people worked day and night to keep building ships like this one. The asteroid belt was full of human mining ships pulling out metal and rare materials. Every factory on Earth was making weapons and armor and engines. Commander Park Jin was already on the bridge when he arrived. She stood in front of huge screens that showed everything happening around the ship. Her fingers moved across light controls that managed systems too complex for most people to understand. She had been working for 18 hours straight, but still looked ready for anything. The crew of 15,000 people moved through the ship like ants in a giant metal hill. Each person had a job that kept the Tegukum running perfectly. Some worked on the engines that could bend space itself. Others maintained the weapons that could crack moons in half. Everyone knew that Earth was counting on them. Lieutenant Kim Do sat at his station watching the darkness beyond Earth. His screens showed radio waves and energy patterns from deep space. For months he had been seeing strange signals that did not come from any human source. Something was out there in the black between the stars. Something that was getting closer to Earth every day. The ship's nuclear reactors hummed with power deep in its belly. Each reactor was as big as a city block and made enough energy to power entire countries. The power flowed through cables as thick as tree trunks to systems that most people could not even imagine. Shield generators that could stop asteroid impacts. Weapons that fired bullets at light speed. Computers that could think faster than a million human brains. Park Jin walked over to Li Wu and showed him the latest reports. The strange signals were getting stronger every week. They followed patterns that proved intelligence was behind them. Someone or something was sending messages across the galaxy. The messages were not meant for humans, but Earth was picking them up anyway. Li Wu read the reports and felt cold fear in his stomach. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they were about to find out. The signal suggested that whoever was sending them had technology far beyond anything humans had ever built. But the Tegukum was ready for them. The ship carried enough missiles to level continents. Its main guns could punch holes through the Earth's crust. The armor was made from materials that did not exist in nature. Human scientists had created new metals and new alloys just to build this one ship. It was the strongest thing humanity had ever made. Kim Do called out from his station that the signals were getting much stronger. Something big was moving through space toward the solar system. The energy readings were off his charts. Whatever was coming had power sources that made human reactors look like candles next to forest fires. Park Jin began running system checks on all the ship's weapons. Every gun was loaded and ready to fire. Every missile tube was armed and waiting. The shields were at full power, and the engines were warmed up for emergency acceleration. If aliens were coming to Earth, then they would meet the full might of human military engineering. The bridge crew worked with calm efficiency, even though they all knew history was about to change forever. They had trained for this moment for years. Every simulation had prepared them for first contact with alien intelligence. But simulations were safe and predictable. Real aliens would be something entirely different. Li Wu looked around the bridge at his crew. These were the best people humanity had to offer. They came from every country on Earth and spoke dozens of languages, but they all understood the same thing. Earth needed protection, and they were the ones who would provide it. The Tegukum had cost more money than most countries made in a century. Every human government had contributed resources to build it. The ship represented not just human technology, but human determination. Humanity would not go quietly into whatever the universe had planned for them. Park Jin reported that all systems were running perfectly. The ship was ready for anything. Weapons fully charged, shields at maximum strength. The crew was alert and prepared. Earth's greatest protector was ready to face the unknown. Kim Do suddenly stood up from his station with excitement and fear on his face. The signals had changed completely. Instead of random patterns, they now showed clear mathematical sequences. Someone was trying to communicate. The aliens were sending a message that any intelligent species would understand. Li Wu felt history shifting around him like tectonic plates. First contact was no longer a possibility for the future. It was happening right now. In the next few hours or days, humanity would meet another intelligent species for the first time. Everything that came after would depend on how that meeting went. The Tagukam drifted through space above Earth like a metal guardian angel. Its weapons were ready, and its crew was prepared. Humanity had built the strongest warship in their history because they knew that when aliens finally came to Earth, they would need to see strength instead of weakness. The ship's computers calculated millions of possible scenarios every second. Battle plans and diplomatic protocols loaded and reloaded in electronic minds that never got tired or scared. But in the end, everything would depend on human judgment and human courage. Li Wu walked to the captain's chair and sat down. The weight of command felt heavier than usual as he realized that his decisions in the coming days might determine the future of every human being alive. The Tagukam was ready. Earth was as protected as human technology could make it. Now they could only wait and see what the universe would bring to their doorstep. The alien ships appeared in human space like silver dreams falling from heaven. Lieutenant Kim Do watched his screens explode with new contacts as 12 vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Jupiter. Each ship was a work of art that made human engineering look crude and ugly by comparison. Smooth curves and flowing lines created shapes that seemed to dance even while standing still. Admiral Choi Nam rushed to the command center deep inside the Tagukam. His gray hair was messy from sleep, but his eyes were sharp and alert. The moment humanity had prepared for was finally here. First contact with alien intelligence was happening on his watch, and he would make sure Earth was ready for whatever came next. The alien ships moved in perfect formation toward the inner solar system. Their hulls seemed to be made of liquid metal that reflected starlight in ways that hurt human eyes to look at directly. Each vessel was about half the size of the Tagukam, but the energy readings coming from them suggested power levels that could boil oceans. Park Jin worked frantically at her control station trying to understand the alien technology. Their ship showed no visible engines but moved through space faster than anything humans had ever built. No weapon ports could be seen, but energy signatures indicated systems that could probably destroy planets. The aliens looked peaceful, but carried enough firepower to end civilization. The first alien message came through on multiple radio frequencies at the same time. Mathematical sequences that proved intelligence behind the transmission. Prime numbers and geometric formulas that any thinking species would recognize. Then came pictures that showed star charts and atomic structures. Finally, words in perfect Korean, English, and Chinese. Kim Do played the message for everyone on the bridge. The alien voice was musical and pleasant like wind chimes on a summer day. The translator systems built into their ships had somehow learned human languages just by listening to Earth's radio broadcasts for a few hours. Their technology was decades ahead of anything humans could imagine. The aliens called themselves the Villani, and they claimed to be peaceful explorers. Their message spoke of friendship between species and the joy of meeting new intelligent life. They had traveled across the galaxy spreading knowledge and bringing primitive species into their great confederation of thinking beings. Choi Nam listened to the pretty words, but watched the tactical displays with growing concern. The alien ships were positioned to control all the major space lanes around Earth. Their formation looked friendly, but would be perfect for blockading the planet if things went wrong. Military instincts told him that peaceful words and threatening positions did not match. Captain Li Wu joined the discussion as the aliens continued their broadcast. The Villani spoke of 47 different species they had helped develop better technology and social systems. War was unknown in their confederation because everyone worked together for the common good. Resources were shared freely, and knowledge flowed like water to places that needed it most. The alien ambassador introduced himself as Veltar and requested permission to approach Earth with a small diplomatic vessel. He wanted to meet human leaders and discuss bringing Earth into the galactic community. The benefits would be enormous for a young species like humanity. Advanced medicine that could end death from aging, energy systems that made nuclear power look like campfires, faster than light travel that could take humans to any star in the galaxy. Park Jin ran quick calculations on her computers, while the aliens waited for an answer. Their diplomatic ship was small but still carried enough energy to level cities. The weapons on the main fleet could probably crack Earth's crust if they decided to get hostile. Humanity was completely outgunned and outclassed by technology that seemed like magic. But the Tegukum was not helpless. Human weapons were crude but powerful, and the ship carried enough firepower to hurt anything. The crew had trained for years to fight enemies with better technology. Sometimes being primitive was an advantage because advanced enemies did not expect desperate tactics from inferior species. Kim Do monitored the alien fleet, while Earth's leaders decided how to respond. The Villani ships were scanning everything in the solar system, with beams too weak to be considered weapons but strong enough to map every human installation. They were learning about Earth's defenses while pretending to be friendly visitors. The alien message repeated every few minutes with slight changes that showed they were paying attention to human responses. News broadcasts from Earth were being analyzed and understood in real time. The Villani were learning about human culture and technology faster than anyone thought possible. Choi Nam made the decision that would shape first contact. Earth would meet with the alien ambassador, but from a position of strength. The Tegukum would remain at full combat readiness with weapons powered and shields raised. Humanity would talk but be prepared to fight if negotiations went wrong. Li Wu agreed with the Admiral's choice. History was full of examples where advanced civilizations destroyed primitive ones without meaning to cause harm. The Europeans had not intended to wipe out native peoples in America, but superior technology and diseases had done the job anyway. Humanity would not make the same mistake. The alien response came back within minutes of Earth's answer. Veltar seemed pleased that humans were willing to meet and discuss membership in the Galactic Confederation. His ship began moving toward Earth while the main fleet held position near Jupiter. Everything looked peaceful and reasonable. But Park Jin noticed that the alien formation was slowly tightening around the solar system. The ships were moving to positions that would let them strike at Earth, Mars, and the asteroid mining facilities with minimal warning. Their movements were subtle and could be explained as normal caution, but the pattern was clear to anyone with military training. Kim Do detected more scanning beams coming from the diplomatic vessel as it approached Earth. The aliens were measuring everything from the Tegukum's armor thickness to the power output of human nuclear reactors. They wanted to know exactly what they were dealing with before making any serious commitments. The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency as first contact moved from distant possibility to immediate reality. Every system on the ship was ready for combat, while the diplomats prepared for peaceful discussion. Humanity's greatest warship would serve as both meeting place and final line of defense. Choi Nam looked out at the stars and wondered what the next few hours would bring. The aliens seemed friendly, but carried enough weapons to end human civilization with ease. Earth would soon discover whether the Villani were truly peaceful explorers or something much more dangerous hiding behind pretty words and artistic ship designs. Ambassador Veltar materialized on the bridge of the Tegukum in a shimmer of light and energy. His form shifted constantly between solid matter and pure energy, making it hard for human eyes to focus on him directly. The alien was tall and thin with features that seemed to change every few seconds. Sometimes he looked almost human and other times completely foreign. Admiral Choi Nam stepped forward to greet the first alien to ever visit a human ship. The moment felt historic, even though both species were trying to hide their nervousness. Behind polite words and careful gestures, Veltar spoke through translation devices that turned his thoughts into perfect Korean that sounded more natural than most humans could manage. The alien ambassador praised human achievement in reaching the stars so quickly. Most species took much longer to develop space travel and build ships like the Tegukum. Human determination and creativity were remarkable traits that would serve well in the Galactic Confederation. Such rapid development showed great potential for future growth. Captain Li Wu listened carefully while studying intelligence reports on his personal screen. His officers had been analyzing Vellani communications with other species for the past few hours. Every race they had encountered became peaceful members of their confederation within a few years of first contact. War disappeared from their worlds, along with hunger, poverty, and most forms of competition. Veltar began explaining the history of Vellani exploration across the galaxy. They had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, bringing civilization to primitive worlds. 47 different species now lived in harmony, under Vellani guidance, sharing technology and resources for the benefit of all thinking beings. The aliens showed holographic images of beautiful worlds where different species worked together on massive projects. Cities that floated in the clouds of gas giants. Space stations the size of moons where millions of beings studied the secrets of the universe. Art and music that combined the best ideas from dozens of different cultures into something wonderful and new. Park Jin studied the energy readings from Veltar's projection systems while he spoke. The technology was incredibly advanced, but she noticed something disturbing in the data. Every species shown in the images had stopped developing new technology after joining the Confederation. Their ships and weapons and tools were exactly the same as they had been centuries ago. Lieutenant Kim Do worked at his station analyzing transmissions from the Vellani fleet, while the ambassador continued his presentation. Hidden in the normal communications were scanning beams too subtle to set off alarms but strong enough to map every system on the Tegukum. The aliens were learning about human defenses while talking about friendship and cooperation. The ambassador explained how the Confederation worked to maintain peace across the galaxy. Individual military forces were not needed when everyone belonged to the same community. Resources were shared based on need rather than strength. Conflicts were resolved through discussion and compromise rather than violence. War had become a thing of the past. Choi Nam felt cold suspicion growing in his mind as he listened to the alien's words. Peace was a wonderful thing, but the kind of peace Veltar described sounded more like control. When he asked about species that might prefer to remain independent, the ambassador's form flickered in what might have been irritation or confusion. Such thinking was outdated according to Veltar. Individual development led to inequality and conflict. The Confederation provided everything that member species needed to live happy and productive lives. There was no benefit to maintaining separate military forces or competing development programs. Unity brought strength and stability that isolated species could never achieve. Li Wu asked direct questions about the species that had joined the Confederation. What happened to their governments and their unique cultures? Were they free to leave if they changed their minds about membership? The answers came wrapped in pleasant words, but the meaning was clear. Joining the Confederation was permanent, and individual choice became community decision. The alien ambassador requested a tour of human technology as a gesture of mutual trust. He was particularly interested in seeing the weapon systems and defensive capabilities of the Tegukum. Such information would help the Confederation determine how best to integrate human military assets into their peaceful framework. Park Jin exchanged glances with her admiral when she heard this request. The aliens wanted to catalog human weapons, not out of curiosity, but to know exactly what they were dealing with. Every species that joined the Confederation had their military capabilities carefully documented and then gradually dismantled for the good of galactic peace. Kim Do detected increased activity from the alien fleet during the ambassador's visit. The ships were slowly moving closer to Earth while maintaining their friendly formation. Energy levels were increasing across all vessels, though still within ranges that could be explained as normal operations rather than preparation for combat. Veltar began making subtle suggestions about human society during his tour of the ship. Perhaps Earth's many different governments created unnecessary competition and conflict. The Confederation had found that unified leadership worked much better for member species. Individual nations often made decisions that hurt the greater good without realizing it. The ambassador also questioned the need for such massive military vessels like the Tegukum. Weapons of this size could cause terrible damage if they fell into the wrong hands. The Confederation had much better ways to ensure security that did not require threatening displays of force. Peace was always better than the threat of violence. Choi Nam realized that this was not really a friendly visit but an evaluation. The Villani were determining whether humanity would accept their guidance willingly or if force would be necessary. Every question about human weapons and defenses was gathering intelligence for potential future action. Li Wu decided to test the alien ambassador with direct challenges. He asked what would happen if humanity chose to remain independent. Could Earth continue to develop its own technology and expand into space without Confederation oversight? The answer came with the first hint of steel beneath Veltar's peaceful words. Independent development was dangerous for young species, according to the ambassador. Without proper guidance, humans might create weapons that could threaten the stability of the entire galaxy. The Confederation had a responsibility to prevent such disasters from happening. Membership was not just an opportunity, but an obligation to the greater galactic community. The meaning was clear to everyone on the bridge, even though it was wrapped in polite language. Humanity could join the Confederation willingly and accept Villani guidance, or they could be forced to comply for the safety of everyone else. Independence was not really an option for species that the Confederation had decided to help. Park Jin watched her tactical displays as the conversation continued. The alien fleet was now positioned to strike at Earth's major population centers, with minimal warning. Their diplomatic visit was providing cover for what looked like preparation for military action if negotiations failed to produce the desired results. Kim Do intercepted communications between the alien ships that revealed their true intentions. The Villani were discussing how much resistance humanity might offer and what level of force would be needed to ensure compliance. Their peaceful facade was cracking to reveal something much more threatening underneath. Veltar concluded his presentation by formally inviting Earth to join the Galactic Confederation. The benefits would be immediate and enormous. Advanced technology would solve every human problem within a few generations. But the invitation came with an implicit deadline and consequences for refusal that no one wanted to discuss openly. The bridge crew remained calm and professional while their world changed around them. First contact had revealed that humanity was not alone in the universe, but the aliens they had met were not the friendly explorers they pretended to be. The Villani were conquerors who preferred voluntary surrender to messy battles, but were prepared for either option. The critical moment arrived when Ambassador Veltar made his first real demand, disguised as a friendly suggestion. Earth should consider dismantling their aggressive military vessels as a gesture of good faith toward galactic peace. Ships like the Tegukum sent the wrong message to other Confederation members who had learned to resolve conflicts through discussion rather than threats of violence. Admiral Choi Nam felt the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees as the aliens' true intentions finally became clear. This was not a request or even a strong suggestion. It was a test to see if humanity would submit to Villani authority without requiring direct force. The pretty words about friendship and cooperation were just wrapping paper around an ultimatum. The Admiral's response came with the calm certainty of someone who had spent his entire life preparing for exactly this moment. Humanity appreciated the generous offer of Confederation membership, but would maintain their defensive capabilities until they better understood how galactic politics actually worked. The Tegukum would remain operational with full weapons and crew. Veltar's shifting form flickered more rapidly when he heard the refusal. The pleasant musical tone of his voice carried new undertones that sounded like barely controlled anger or perhaps genuine confusion. No species had ever refused Villani guidance before. The concept of rejecting Confederation membership seemed completely foreign to his understanding of how first contact was supposed to proceed. Captain Li Wu stepped closer to the alien ambassador and spoke with quiet steel in his voice. Earth had a long history of learning hard lessons about what happened when technologically advanced civilizations met primitive ones. The results were usually extinction for the weaker party, regardless of how friendly the initial contact appeared to be. The ambassador tried a different approach by explaining that individual military forces created dangerous instabilities in the galactic order. When every species maintained their own weapons and defenses, the risk of conflicts increased dramatically. The Confederation had eliminated war by ensuring that only they possessed the tools of violence. Peace through strength required centralized control. Commander Park Jin watched her tactical displays while the diplomatic discussion continued on the bridge. The alien fleet had completed their repositioning maneuvers and now controlled all the major approach routes to Earth. Their formation looked casual to untrained eyes, but would be perfect for launching a coordinated strike if negotiations broke down completely. Lieutenant Kim Do intercepted increasingly urgent communications between the Vallani ships as their ambassador's mission began to fail. The aliens were expressing surprise and growing concern about human resistance to their standard first contact procedures. Multiple contingency plans were being activated as they prepared for the possibility of actually having to fight for control. Veltar made one final attempt to convince humanity to accept Confederation membership voluntarily. He painted a picture of the benefits that would flow from joining the Galactic community. Diseases that killed millions of humans could be cured overnight, energy sources that would power civilization for millions of years, technologies that would allow humans to live forever and travel instantly between distant stars. But the price for these gifts was complete surrender of human independence and the dismantling of every weapon that might threaten Vallani control. Earth would become another peaceful member species that contributed to the greater good under wise alien guidance. Individual nations and competing governments would be replaced by unified leadership that made decisions for everyone's benefit. Choi. Nam realized that this was probably the same speech that 47 other species had heard during their first contact experiences. The Vallani had perfected a system for acquiring new member species through a combination of tempting offers and implicit threats. Most races probably accepted because the alternative was extinction. Li Wu asked the question that had to be answered even though everyone already knew what the response would be. What would happen if Earth chose to remain independent and continue developing their own technology without Confederation oversight? Could humanity and the Vallani coexist as separate but friendly civilizations? The ambassador's form became more solid and less shifting when he delivered his final message. Independent development was simply not acceptable to the Confederation. Young species without proper guidance inevitably created weapons that threatened galactic stability. Earth could join willingly or be forced to comply, but isolation was not an option that would be tolerated. Park Jin reported that all Taegukam weapon systems were fully charged and ready for immediate combat. The crew had been quietly preparing for battle while the diplomatic discussions continued. Every missile tube was loaded, every energy weapon was powered, and the ship's massive shields were operating at maximum strength. The alien fleet began broadcasting surrender demands on multiple frequencies as their ambassador prepared to leave the human ship. Earth had 24 hours to announce their decision to join the Confederation and begin dismantling their military forces. Failure to comply would result in direct intervention to ensure galactic security and prevent future conflicts. Kim Do detected massive energy buildups across the Vallani fleet as they prepared their weapons for potential combat. The aliens clearly expected human surrender once they demonstrated their overwhelming technological superiority. 47 previous species had made the logical choice when faced with certain destruction. Veltar transported off the Taegukam in a shimmer of light that left the bridge feeling somehow cleaner and less oppressive. His final words were a mixture of regret and certainty. Humanity would soon understand that resistance was pointless against Confederation technology. The wise choice was always surrender before unnecessary destruction occurred. Choi Nam called an immediate council of war as soon as the alien ambassador disappeared. Earth's military leaders connected from around the world to discuss options for responding to the Vallani ultimatum. The consensus was unanimous despite the hopeless odds they faced. Humanity would not surrender without a fight, regardless of the technological gap between species. The Taegukam and every other human military asset would resist Confederation control with every weapon and tactic available. Death was preferable to slavery even when the chains came decorated with promises of peace and prosperity. Li Wu felt a strange sense of peace settle over him as he accepted what was coming. Humanity had always known that first contact might not go well for Earth. That was why they had built ships like the Tegukum and prepared for the worst-case scenario. The next few hours would determine whether humans would remain free or become another conquered species. Park Jin began final preparations for what would probably be the last battle in human history. The odds were impossible, and the enemy possessed technology that seemed like magic compared to human weapons. But the crew of the Tegukum would fight with everything they had, because surrender meant the end of human civilization as an independent force in the galaxy. The test of strength was about to begin, and everyone knew that only one species would survive it with their freedom intact. The aliens had numbers technology and thousands of years of experience conquering primitive worlds. But humanity had something the Villani did not understand: the absolute refusal to accept slavery, no matter how prettily it was packaged or how hopeless resistance appeared to be. The attack began exactly 24 hours after the Villani ultimatum expired. Lieutenant Kim Do watched his screens explode with incoming weapons fire as the alien fleet launched their assault on Earth's orbital defenses. Beams of pure energy lanced through space toward human installations that had never been tested against technology this advanced. Captain Li Wu smiled grimly as the first alien weapons struck the Tegukum's shields. The massive warship absorbed energy levels that could have boiled away entire cities while barely registering the impact on internal systems. Human engineering had built the ship to withstand anything short of stellar collapse, and the Villani were about to learn that lesson the hard way. The alien battle plan was elegant in its simplicity and had worked perfectly for thousands of years, across dozens of star systems. Disable enemy defenses quickly through overwhelming technological superiority, then accept the inevitable surrender with gracious magnanimity. No species had ever been able to resist Confederation weapons long enough for extended combat to develop. Admiral Choi Nam coordinated the human response from deep within the Tegukum's armored command center. Every weapon system on the massive warship came online simultaneously, as Earth's greatest military achievement prepared to face its ultimate test. The ship carried enough firepower to crack continents, and had been designed specifically for this moment. Commander Park Jin targeted the lead Villani vessel with a full spread of kinetic projectiles moving at near light speed. The aliens had shields that could deflect energy weapons and exotic matter that could absorb most forms of radiation, but they had never faced simple chunks of metal moving fast enough to punch through almost anything in the universe. The first human projectiles struck Villani shields like hammers hitting glass. Energy barriers that had protected alien ships for centuries shattered under impacts that delivered more force than nuclear explosions. The lead enemy vessel staggered under the assault, while its crew tried to understand how primitive weapons could penetrate their advanced defenses. Kim Do monitored alien communications as panic began spreading through the Villani fleet. Their standard tactics were failing against human weapons that should not have been able to hurt their ships. Desperate orders flew between vessels as commanders tried to adapt to a type of warfare they had never experienced before. The battle that followed lasted exactly 17 minutes and changed the course of galactic history forever. Human weapons were crude and primitive compared to Villani technology, but had been designed by a species that expected to fight enemies with better equipment. Simplicity became an advantage when complex alien systems failed under straightforward kinetic assault. Li Wu coordinated his ship's attack with cold efficiency, while alien energy weapons washed harmlessly over the Tegukum's shields. The massive human warship had been built with paranoid redundancy by engineers who assumed everything would eventually break down in combat. Every system had backups, and every backup had alternatives. The first Villani ship died when a human missile penetrated its hull and detonated inside the reactor compartment. The elegant vessel simply vanished in a flash of light that could be seen from Earth's surface. Two more alien ships followed within minutes, as kinetic projectiles moving at impossible speeds tore through their defenses. Park Jin reported successful hits on multiple enemy vessels while the Tegukum continued absorbing alien weapons fire without serious damage. Human armor had been designed to stop everything from lasers to antimatter, while Villani ships had been built assuming their shields would handle any conceivable threat from primitive species. The remaining alien ships began retreating toward the edge of the solar system as their elegant battle plan collapsed into desperate survival. 4 of their vessels had been destroyed by weapons that should not have existed, while the massive human warship continued fighting at full capacity, despite absorbing firepower that could have sterilized planets. Choi Nam opened communications channels to the fleeing Vellani fleet before they could escape to hyperspace. His message was simple and delivered in the same pleasant tone that Ambassador Veltar had used during his diplomatic visit. Humanity rejected Confederation membership and would resist any future attempts at forced integration with extreme prejudice. The alien response came back within minutes and lacked any of the musical pleasantness that had characterized their previous communications. The Confederation would not tolerate this unprecedented resistance to galactic order. Larger fleets with more advanced weapons would return to complete the pacification of human space, regardless of the cost in lives and resources. Kim Do intercepted frantic messages between the surviving Vellani ships as they prepared for emergency hyperspace jumps. The aliens were broadcasting news of their defeat to Confederation command centers across the galaxy. For the first time in their long history of conquest, a primitive species had not only refused their guidance, but actively defeated their military intervention. Li Wu authorized pursuit of the retreating alien vessels, but ordered his officers to let them escape. Earth needed the Vellani survivors to carry news of human military capability back to their home systems. The Confederation needed to understand that humanity would fight any attempt to force them into submission, regardless of the odds. The Tagukum emerged from its first real combat with minor damage to non-critical systems and a crew that had proven themselves against the most advanced military force in the known galaxy. Human weapons had destroyed 4 alien vessels while taking hits that would have vaporized most ships ever built by any species. Park Jin began damage assessment, while the alien fleet disappeared into hyperspace carrying news that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The Confederation had built its power on the assumption that primitive species would always choose survival over resistance. Humanity had just proven that assumption completely wrong. The victory celebration on Earth lasted for days as news of the battle spread across every human communication network. Humanity had faced its greatest test and emerged victorious against enemies with technology that seemed impossible by human standards. The Tagukum and its crew had saved human independence at the cost of making Earth a target for future alien attacks. Choi Nam studied tactical reports while the celebration continued. Around him, the battle had been won, but the war was just beginning. The Confederation controlled thousands of star systems and had military resources that dwarfed anything humanity could field. Earth had bought time and freedom, but the price would be eternal vigilance. Kim Do monitored deep space communications as the news of human victory began spreading beyond Confederation networks. Other species that had been absorbed into the galactic community were learning that resistance was possible. Whispers of rebellion were starting to spread across star systems that had accepted Vellani guidance centuries ago. Li Wu looked out at the stars and knew that everything had changed forever. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy not as supplicants seeking approval, but as equals demanding respect. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but Earth would face them as a free species rather than willing slaves to alien masters. Thieu 1. Age of human expansion into space had begun with violence and would probably continue the same way. But freedom was worth fighting for, regardless of the cost. The Tagukum and ships like it would carry human independence to the stars and make sure that no species would ever face the choice between slavery and extinction alone again. News of humanity's victory against the Vellani spread across galactic communication networks faster than light itself. Lieutenant Kim Do monitored the growing flood of transmissions as species throughout the Confederation learned that resistance was not only possible but successful. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was talking about something other than peaceful cooperation under alien guidance. The elegant Confederation that had controlled galactic civilization for thousands of years began showing cracks within days of the battle. Species that had accepted Vellani protection generations ago started asking questions they had not dared voice for centuries. Why were their weapons development programs discontinued? Why were their governments restructured to match Confederation standards? Why were they never allowed to explore space beyond their assigned sectors? Admiral Choi Nam coordinated with Earth's intelligence services as reports flowed in from across the galaxy. The Corvani had declared independence from Confederation oversight and were demanding the return of their military assets. The Thessian Republic was refusing to send tribute ships to Volani collection points. The Markab Hegum,